Bet horse racing on DRF Bets. We'll match your first deposit up to $250. Get free expert picks and past performances, plus weekly cash back, all from Daily Racing Form, the most trusted name in horse racing. Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look back at the Preakness Stakes of 2021. No Triple Crown on the line this year, thanks to Michael McCarthy and Rombauer. We break from the gate. Keep an eye on Rombauer. He is the number 6. And keep an eye on the Kentucky Derby winner, the number 3, Medina Spirit. He caught a flyer leaving the gate, but he is going to be hounded immediately by Midnight Bourbon.
Yeah, these were the two horses who took most of the money, Dan. They go off to the front here. Medina Spirit, this is probably the trip he wants, right? It's sort of the same trip he got in the Derby. Makes his way to the lead. You know, Midnight Bourbon's sticking with him, but they're not exactly racing here. And Medina Spirit's going to stay off the inside the entire way, Dan. He's just not nearly as good as he was 2 weeks ago.
Meanwhile, Rombauer is, for him, relatively close to the pace. He is sitting only about 5 lengths or so off of it in between horses, and he's settling into a nice rhythm as this pace is solid.
Yeah, he got a great trip in this race. It's nice to see him show a little bit more tactical speed. It almost felt like the Bluegrass day, and the only reason he was so close that day is because they went so slow. They weren't exactly walking here, but he still kept himself in great position all the way around the track.
Meanwhile, up front, Joel Rosario got aggressive on the Japanese Raider, Francisco de Ina. He tried Medina Spirit from Medina Spirit's inside on the turn. You're going to see him quickly back up. Maybe that softened up Medina Spirit just a bit. Medina Spirit regains control. Midnight Bourbon's ratcheting up the pressure, but Rombauer is lurking in behind.
Yeah, the leaders are racing now, Dan. They've really picked it up here around the second turn. They're basically dueling up in front. Rombauer is keeping himself in range. He's all out off the quarter pole, but he's still running. I mean, he's just going to flat overpower these two horses coming down to about the 8th pole, Dan. He's much the best at the end. Once he takes over from these two horses, that's it. He doesn't have to do anything else, Dan. Nobody else is doing a stitch of running behind these horses.
He sweeps right on by the much larger Midnight Bourbon in the 16th pole, and he is on his way. Rombauer, the winner of the 2021 Preakness. We take a look at the order of finish. Rombauer at 11-1. This was a very likable performance, Mike, for a colt that really was unexposed coming in. He looked good winning the El Camino Real Derby over a synthetic track where he got a great setup. In the Bluegrass, you could argue he was taken out of his game in a race where they dominated up front and he was forced to stay close. And in the Preakness, he really fired a 102 buyer.
Yeah, this was just a huge step forward for this horse. And he was, you know, when you go back and look at it, just very lightly raced. This is only his 3rd start of the year. He ran fine in the Bluegrass. Yeah, you know, he had to stay a little closer maybe than he wanted to. Ultimately, that's going to be, you know, good for this horse going forward. At the end of the day, Dan, to me anyway, the Bluegrass just turned out to be a case of the 1-2 finishers, not only being up on a slow pace, they were just better than Rombauer was that day. This horse improved big time in this race. Onto the Belmont with this horse. He's a very interesting horse going forward. The Belmont, though, will be a much, much tougher race.
Midnight Bourbon, a possible for the Belmont. You could argue he won the duel, lost the war in the Preakness. Certainly made up for the Kentucky Derby, a race in which he was compromised at the start and couldn't get forwardly placed. That's the key for Midnight Bourbon, to get the kind of trip that he had in the Preakness.
He bounced back to a certain extent here. That you're right. That's the trip that he wants to get. You know, the way that things played out in this Preakness, though, for him, Dan, it just felt like a great situation for him. They were betting him early and often in this race, and for a reason. You know, it felt like he was going to get that trip, and maybe this was just going to be the right spot. At the end of the day, it wasn't, Dan. I mean, he just wasn't good enough to win this race. He's a really likable horse, but he's not that good.
Medina Spirit will not be competing in the Belmont Stakes, nor will Concert Tour, nor will any of Bob Baffert-trained horses as of right now. The Baffert horses are banned from the grounds at NYRA, pending the investigation into Medina Spirit's positive test in the Kentucky Derby. Getting back to Medina Spirit, not that it would have mattered anyway, but were you surprised that John Velazquez had him in the 3-path on the lead on the backstretch? For 2 reasons. A, it seemed like the inside was very, very good all weekend at Pimlico. B, well, that's what hurt Johnny Velazquez in last year's Preakness when Swiss Skydiver snuck inside of Authentic. And maybe that was the difference.
It could have been. I don't know what the thinking was with riding him that way. You know, they did keep him off the inside, which did seem like it was a good place to be for most of the weekend. But whatever The thinking was, keeping him there, Dan. I don't see what difference it made. This horse, he wasn't nearly as sharp in this race as he was in the Derby, and he was no match in the stretch.
The big flop in this race was Concert Tour, who was such an impressive winner visually of the Rebel Stakes. He then bombed as the favorite in the Arkansas Derby. Some said he was up close to a fast pace. He had an excuse. Yes, he was wide in here, but he was dreadful.
He was terrible in here. He did get bumped at the start. Mike Smith didn't really seem too concerned with trying to make the lead. His stablemate did go to the lead, and they did not go after him in here. It wasn't going to matter. This horse didn't run a jump.
Keep Me in Mind finished fourth. He passed a few tired horses in the stretch. It was nice to see a little bit of a progression from him because it was a slow start for 2021 for Keep Me in Mind.
He has gotten better in his last two starts. He ran an okay race in the Derby with very little chance to make an impact. He probably had more of a chance here, Dan. I guess they raced a little bit in front of him around the second turn anyway. He did break very poorly in this race. It looked like he leaned right into the gate when it opened. He was last. He made a little bit of a run in here, but he was never a real factor.
The two Chad Brown train runners, the fifth place finisher, Crowded Trade, the eighth place finisher, Risk Taking, just did not do much. Crowded Trade was in contention along with France Go de Ina exiting the backstretch. He backed out of there readily, and Risk Taking never picked up his feet.
I mean, I guess we'll see Crowded Trade maybe turn back for his next start, I guess. I mean, he wasn't terrible in here, but overall he got a very good trip and had a chance to at least get a piece of it. He didn't really have much finish at all. I don't know what to say about Risk Taking. This is two starts in a row for him now where he's basically shown up with nothing.
France Go de Ina, the Japanese horse, will go on to the Belmont Stakes. Naira is offering a $1 million bonus for any Japanese-based horse that wins the Belmont. France Go de Ina, I was very surprised how close he was to the pace. I think that was a good sign. Rosario went for it on the turn, and this horse was rebuffed. Maybe the mile and a half will help him a little bit, but I wonder if he was exposed a little bit here.
He might have been, but it seems like he's got an awful lot to prove now, though. I mean, even if, and as you, when we did the preview for this race, Dan, you said you very rarely see, the Preakness being used as a prep. And maybe that was the case with this horse, but man, he was up close, took a little bit of a run at it, never looked like he had enough and was nowhere at the finish.
Let's look at Rom Bauer's horse card as we prepare for the third jewel in racing's Triple Crown. Rom Bauer, a homebred trained by Michael McCarthy. It was a lovely ride by Pratt. And when we look at this pedigree, I'm really not too concerned about this horse stretching out. He appears he'll run all day long.
I mean, on the track, it certainly looks like that. I mean, so we'll see what happens. You can't really knock his form at all, Dan. He's very lightly raced. This was only the third time in his career the fourth time in his career they even ran him on dirt. He was grade 1 place the first time they ran on it as a 2-year-old. He just keeps getting better with every race. Exactly what you want to see as you go through the Triple Crown Trail.
Taking a look at the prices for the Preakness Stakes. Rombauer, $25.60 to win. Midnight Bourbon second. Medina Spirit third. This $1 exacta returned $49.30. Rombauer, a very deserving winner of the Preakness, is on to New York to try to make it 2/3 of this year's Triple Crown.